What's good? Hi, so I have been doing a lot of work on my voice since coming out as trans about 3-ish years ago. Now, as a streamer, I sometimes get questions about vocal training techniques and what I personally did to get to where I am. So instead of answering the same question individually over and over, I've decided to put together a little video to talk about my journey and the things that I've learned along the way. Now, as a note, this is all based on my own research and experience. I'm not a professional vocal coach, but with that aside, let's get started. Now, there's a lot going on here, but you're probably familiar with the vocal cords at least, or as they're referred to in this diagram, the vocal folds. Now, the vocal folds are two strips of muscle that sit on top of your larynx, which is also known as your voice blocks. When you speak, your vocal folds vibrate to modulate the sound that is coming out of your body. Now, if you're like me and you've undergone a masculinizing puberty, that is, you're assigned male at birth, or however you want to refer to it, then testosterone has caused changes to the vocal folds and the larynx in your body. Specifically, in response to the exposure to testosterone, the larynx is going to lengthen and deepen. Now, unfortunately, there is no way to undo this change through hormone replacement therapy. For trans men, or people who are assigned female at birth, taking testosterone will actually have the same effect and will cause the larynx and vocal folds to change, deepen, and thicken and lengthen. But for trans women like myself, estrogen alone doesn't do much for our voices. It's pretty unfortunate. But just because hormone replacement therapy won't change our voices doesn't mean that there aren't other options. Surgical techniques do exist, but I'm going to focus on non-surgical techniques here. So the two things that I want to focus on in this video are pitch and resonance. Now, you're probably familiar with pitch as being either high or low, and that refers to the length of the wavelengths or the frequency that a person is speaking at. Now, there is a difference typically between how masculine and feminine speakers pitch their different voices. So an adult woman's range tends to range from about 165 to 255 hertz, whereas an adult man's range tends to range from about 85 to 155 hertz. And if you go to the App Store, any App Store really, there's no shortage of vocal feminization programs that you can find, and a lot of these tend to place a lot of emphasis on pitch. Now, just a slight caveat here, I personally do not like these for a number of reasons. When I was earlier in this process, I did a lot of this stuff where I would read a passage or a sentence into my phone, and then it would tell me, well, this is how you sound, looking really only at pitch, and it destroyed my confidence. And as I've talked to other trans women and gotten feedback on the script for this video, these have come up quite a bit. And even one of the people that I talked to described this as feeling like self-harm, because they would talk into it, they would get negative feedback, it would hurt their self-confidence. It was just an all-around mess. So just a caveat, if you want to focus on these, by all means go ahead, but keep in mind that they're really only getting at one piece of the puzzle. Because while feminine voices do tend to be higher pitched, research also shows that pitch alone is not enough to be perceived as feminine, and that leads us into the next subject, resonance, also known as brightness. Resonance refers to where sound is resonating in the body. In fact, you can think of your vocal tract a lot like an instrument, kind of like this trombone. Now, if you were lucky enough to not do high school concert band, I'll give you a crash course on how a trombone works. A tromboner is able to change the shape of the instrument by moving the slide around, and in doing so, change the character of the sound coming out of the instrument. Now, what's interesting is that our bodies work the same way. Remember when I said that the vocal folds and the larynx are muscles? That means that you can control them. And in fact, trained vocalists, whether they be singers or voice actors or what have you, are actually able to use muscle control to shift where their voice is resonating in their body through a combination of different techniques. Now, when your voice is resonating more so in your chest, remember how the larynx lengthens, it grows down, it causes your voice to resonate more so in your chest. Your voice is usually going to sound deeper and more characteristically masculine. Now, For the purposes of vocal feminization, we want to get to a point where our voice is typically resonating closer into our mouths and sinuses. And this is why you sometimes hear the term front resonant voice while you're looking around for different vocal feminization resources and different techniques. So, how do you develop the power to shift your voice around? It feels like a superpower, right? Or at least it sounds like it when I'm first pitching that idea to you. But it's a little bit more accessible than that. So, I want you to do me a favor, if you'll just oblige me for a second. Swallow. Not that kind of swallow, like with your throat. Now, if you did oblige me there, thank you. And you might have also felt the muscles in your throat move around a little bit. And part of that motion also shortened your larynx. Remember when we talked about the effects of puberty, and specifically in masculinizing puberty and testosterone? A big part of that is lengthening the larynx, which causes your voice to resonate more deeply in your chest. So now do me another favor, swallow again, but really try to hold the muscles in that raised position. Now, it might be hard at first, but if you can hold them there, try speaking a little bit. You might feel a little bit of a buzzing around your mouth and your nose, and if you do, that's resonance at work. When we swallow, we're actually raising up our tongues and working the same muscles that we're going to talk about in a bit to shorten the larynx. In essence, by swallowing and then trying to hold those muscles and getting familiar with that feeling, we're able to form really the core of a lot of vocal feminization, at least insofar as resonance is concerned. Now, learning to control those muscles is understandably a big part of the broader picture of vocal feminization. And what you really want to be working toward is retraining your brain so that having your tongue and your larynx and your vocal folds and everything in that kind of raised position feels normal, aka you want to develop muscle memory. And at first, this might be hard because these are not muscles that most people ever have to think about. And like working out, it's important not to overwork yourself or potentially set yourself back. I mean, these are muscles that we're working with. They can get strained, they can get bruised. So you really want to focus more so on gradually expanding your comfortable vocal range instead of really trying to wrench or force your muscles into a particular position. Now, as much as it might be frustrating that can be a very long process, in time, you won't even have to think about it because keeping your larynx and everything in that raised position is just going to feel natural. In fact, I just did a couple of takes of this video where right about now, I would try to get my voice back down to where it used to be. And I found that I couldn't because this is just where my brain thinks things should be now. So instead, here's the oldest video that I could find, and it's also a chance for me to show you my dog, so enjoy that. Hazel, Hazel. Want the ball? Go get it. No. No. Hazel, Basil. Hazel. Hazel, do you want it? Go get it. She's not good at this, is she? Now, at this point, I want to pivot over and share one exercise that I used to do that I thought was very helpful in putting all this stuff together. First, you're going to want a straw, kind of like this one. Now, put that straw in your mouth as if you're going to drink from it and buzz your lips. It's going to be like a little bit like this. You can feel that buzzing sensation around your lips, right? Now, here's the actual exercise. I want you to close your eyes and try to visualize that buzzing at one end of your straw close to your lips. And I want you to try to move that buzzing down the length of the straw. It might even be helpful to put a finger on the other end of the straw so that you can feel where the location of that buzz is changing. So I'll do it here, and that should give you an idea of maybe how this is going to sound. So now while you're doing that exercise and you're moving that vibration along the length of the straw, you're actually lengthening and shortening your larynx while you're doing it. So doing this exercise and exercise like it is going to help you learn to control and get a feel for what it's like to be able to control where your voice is resonating and help you unlock that front resonant voice that we've been talking about. Now, yes, there are other factors to consider when developing a voice that reads as female to other people. We talked about pitch, but there's also stuff like tone and inflection, especially in the English language, and I'd imagine in other languages and other cultures. Men and women also tend to pronounce and inflect words differently, but all of that is going to come in time as well. And focusing on resonance in particular, a little bit of a personal anecdote, helped me get positive feedback quicker. Now, remember how those apps were very demotivating? Being able to feel the change in my voice and hear it as well by focusing on resonance helped me stay motivated to keep on voice training because it is a long and a hard road. I'll just got to be honest about it. But I do believe in you, and I think that we're all going to make it ultimately. This is hard. It might seem complicated, but even if you don't realize it in your day to day, you are making progress and it's going to add up over time. Like when I looked at that video with my dog there, it doesn't sound like me anymore. It took me a second to even recognize that that was me. It's kind of knocking me on my ass right now as I'm recording this. So I guess in closing, I do just want to point out and acknowledge that vocal dysphoria is different for everyone. And some people might just feel totally fine with their voices, and they're totally valid in doing that. Doing vocal training is a personal choice, and if you don't want to do it, you shouldn't do it. It's a matter of comfort and all of that. So this is just a little bit of what I've learned. I hope this was helpful. This is kind of a different thing for me to do, but it feels good. So once again, I believe in ya. I think we're all going to make it, and hope this was helpful. Take care.